Hi there Year 9 and welcome to the next lesson in our Research Topics module. So we've now finished interviews and today and next lesson we're going to be looking at observations. So by the end of this lesson I want you to be able to define the different types of observations that we have, and then I want to begin to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of each type of observation. And the reason why this word begin is in italics is because this lesson is the first of two lessons that we're going to be looking at for observations. So we're going to begin the evaluation process for observations in this lesson, and then we're going to finish it off and complete that process for next lesson. And that next lesson will be posted next week. So as a starter activity, we have here on the board 4 different types of observations. So we've got participant observation, non-participant observation, covert observation, and overt observation. And then for each of these types of observations, we have got 4 different definitions. So as a starter activity, I would like you to match up the type of observation with the correct definition. So let's do the first one together, and then afterwards you can pause me and I'll ask you to do the rest on your own. So participant observation is when the researcher actively gets involved in the actions of the groups that they are researching. So for example, if a person is observing gangs, then they will actually take part in the activities of the gang. So this simply means that the researcher is participating in the group they are observing. So now I'd like you to pause me whilst you match up the following 3 with the correct definition, and then we'll go through that once you've finished. So just pause before you do that and then you can resume again once you've done. Okay, fantastic, well done guys. So let's go through these and you can see if you got them correct. So non-participant observation is when the researcher observes but does not take part in the activity. So for example, this is like when you have someone come in your lesson and they sit at the back of the classroom and they observe your lesson. They don't put their hand up and answer the questions, nor do they take part in the teaching that's going on within the class. They just sit at the back and observe. So they're not participating. It's called non-participant observation. The next is covert observation, and this is when the people you're researching do not actually know that you're researching them. So when we looked at ethical issues to do with research in class a few weeks before we broke up for Christmas, we looked at DRIP, which concerned itself with the ethical issues that go on to do with research. So they were deception, risk to participant, informed consent, and privacy. So if we are researching people, but they don't actually know that we are there observing them or researching them, we're firstly deceiving them. There's also risk because we could harm them by maybe hurting their feelings or invading their privacy in some way. I, for informed consent, we haven't got informed consent. We haven't got the consent of the participants to research them. And P, privacy, we're not offering them that privacy, okay? We're invading their privacy. So covert observations can be really useful to do sometimes because they can get us very valid data, but they are not always the most ethical research. And then we've got overt observation, and this is when the group you are observing know that you are observing them, okay? They know you're there, they know the meaning of the research, you've got your informed consent, and there's not really any ethical issues attached to it. However, we know from looking at interviews that there is something called the social desirability effect, and this is when the participants maybe act differently because they're aware that they're being researched, and that affects the validity of the data because they might be acting in ways that aren't really truthful. For example, they might exaggerate to show off a bit, they might lie to make themselves look good. So they're not really giving us or providing us with a true, accurate image of what we are trying to study. And for those reasons, covert observation, although it's not particularly ethical, is a particularly good type of observation to do if we want to make sure we're getting really valid data, because our participants aren't aware that we're there researching them, so they're more likely to be acting in honest and truthful ways. So, observation as a research method. There's a case study on the next slide for you, which I'll introduce in a minute, and that is called Gang Leader for a Day. So I'd like you to read through this piece of research, and I'd like you to highlight in blue the practical issues that you identify, highlight in green the ethical issues you identify, and highlight in orange the theoretical issues that you have identified. Now we've got here all the practical issues. We've got time, resources, access, money, and personal characteristics of the researcher. And then we've got here the ethical issues. So we've got deception, risk, informed consent, and privacy. Now obviously the theoretical issues are validity, representativeness, and reliability. Okay, so validity is how accurate and truthful the data is. Representativeness is if we've got a really big sample, can it represent a mass population? And reliability is how easy it is to replicate that study. If we were to repeat the study, maybe 2 years down the line, would we get similar results, or are the results likely to be different? And we discussed that quantitative research methods such as structured interviews, questionnaires and surveys are those type of research methods that are really, really high in reliability because they're easy to quantify and compare results. So let's introduce you to the research method observations for Gang Leader for a Day. So here is a piece of research that I'd like you to read and highlighting the colours that you think are appropriate. I have highlighted or changed the colour of one sentence in this extract to green because I believe that I have identified an ethical issue in the research. So I'd like you to just read through it, highlight all of the bits of writing that you think might be a practical, ethical or theoretical issue. We'll have a very brief discussion on it, and then once you've finished this and you've submitted it, I'll obviously mark it and give you more detailed feedback then. So just pause me now whilst you do this. Okay, great. So hopefully you've now managed to change the colours of this extract to meet the practical, ethical and theoretical issues attached to it. The reason why, and you might realise this now, that I've put this bit in green is because it revealed that Sudhir Venkatesh started to participate in a gang as a means of his research, and that suggests that there's quite a lot of ethical issues, particularly of risk, attached to this research because he's actually participating in the activities of the gang. So his safety was definitely going to be put at risk here. So I'm sure you've highlighted lots of different points here. So when you do upload this, I'll be commenting on it in some detail and giving you some feedback. So on this slide here, we have two questions, and one of them is a challenge question. I want you all to get into the habit of attempting the challenge questions. Some of you have submitted work and you've answered all the questions, but you have left out the challenge questions. And I want you to start to answer the challenge questions as a means of stretching your understanding of the topic. So let's just focus on this one first. Based on the reading, so the reading that we've just done based on the study, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of over participant observation? I'm not going to give you these to sort out into a table or anything. I just want you to think about them and see which ones you can think of yourself. And when you do this, think about things such as ethical factors and practical factors and theoretical factors. I just want you to write these in the box here. As a challenge, I would like you to stretch yourself here and think about why this piece of research might be extremely high in validity, but low in reliability. And remember, reliability is this notion of if I were to repeat the study, would I be able to yield exactly the same or similar results? If yes, why? And if no, why? So just pause me now as you complete this. Okay, great. Well done, guys. I'll mark those as you submit them. So let's just move on. Okay, so here are a table full of all the advantages and disadvantages of observations. And I'm asking you to change the colour of the statements that are advantages to green and change the colour that are disadvantages to red. And as a challenge, which I want you all to attempt, is I want you to write in the box whether you think the advantage or disadvantages applies to participant observation, non-participant observation, covert observation, or overt observation. So for example, you might write this one is PO, or this one is NPO, or this one is CO. Just write it in the box so that when I mark it, I can see whether or not you're gauging an understanding of the type of observation you are discussing. So please pause me as you do this. Okay, fantastic guys, well done. Let's just move on. So these are the answers that you could have put. I'm going to ask that you don't change the answers you put because I'd like to see your understanding of this. So maybe if you've got a slightly different answer, that's absolutely fine. It's okay not to get this spot on. So just keep it as you put it when you do submit the work, and I can sort of see where you're at with your understanding of this, and maybe I can see where there's some misconceptions, and we can go over it into more detail next lesson. So this is just for you to see, but please do keep your answers as you have them. And I hope that all of you have attempted the challenge as well, which asks you to say whether it's a participant observation or a non-participant observation or a covert or overt observation, just so I can also see that you're understanding what type of observation is being discussed. So next lesson we're going to be going into some more detail, delving a bit further into observations and their evaluations. But I hope you found this lesson useful. Please do submit all the work to the best of your ability, and as I say, please don't change anything for this task. I really do want to see the work that you've completed as it is. So thank you very much. Email me if you have any questions, and have a good day. Bye bye.